Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again for Think, Pare, Share. Today, our guest is Anna White. Anna White is the Executive Director of the Multilingual Programs Department in Houston ISD. Prior to doing that, Anna started in the district at Davila Elementary, which is in Houston's East End. And then from there, was an assistant principal and ultimately principal at Port Houston Elementary, also in the East End. After that, she went on to the southwest corridor of Houston, Cunningham Elementary, and ultimately Bonham Elementary, which is a feeder school to Sharpstown High School, where we are right now. And then having had that amazing experience of sort of East End Houston and Southwest Corridor Houston, my first question today for Anna White, who I thank so much for joining us today, is, Anna, what did you learn about serving such distinct populations, and what did it teach you about the nature of English learners, in particular, given your work right now in the multilingual programs department, the nature of immigration and the nature of poverty as well? I think so often in Houston, we use those words in a blanket way, but it seems to me that there's a nuance and there's differences. What was your experience like?
I think at the time, you don't think about all of those trigger words you just mentioned. You truly are just teaching children and servicing families at the campus level. And what I found out is that my students, they needed an advocate. That's really what my primary job became. And I was teaching, and at the time, there weren't a lot of resources for bilingual teachers. So yes, we still don't have a lot of resources, but even in 2000, we were still struggling. So I never thought about immigration or immigrants or status. I really was just teaching children who needed to be taught. But from there, I went on to be an assistant principal at Port Houston Elementary. Did that for a couple of years and then became the principal. And that's when the lens starts to change to say, we need to support our students in so many other ways than just teaching them. So I was an advocate as a teacher for things that my families needed, not understanding that the advocacy is really why students, or I considered my students to be successful. I didn't really match it. I was still so young and trying to learn the role of a teacher. And teachers wear so many hats, just so many things that they have to do. And as a principal on the East Side, yes, the population's a little different, but what I have discovered are children. And families are families. And I will tell you that every parent, no matter their background, no matter where they come from, it doesn't matter their status, they want what's best for their children. It doesn't matter what language they speak. What they know is that they want what's best for their children. So as long as I was talking about what's best for your child, the families were always so supportive. Now coming to the West Side, from there, I was on the East Side for many years. I was asked to take on a campus at Cunningham, where it was more diverse. And I thought, well, how much more diverse could it be, right? And yes, the West Side is different. The West Side is a lot more diverse. This is where we have pockets of refugees, a lot of immigrants from lots of different countries. So my first experience was, I knew how to connect with families. I know how to connect with families. I know that they are my customers, and I am to provide them great customer service in whatever role I play at the campus level. But I never had experienced a language barrier. I had never experienced that. I speak Spanish, so I could communicate with all my families. And when I got to Cunningham, I ran into, like this is staring me dead in the face. I caught myself doing a lot of total physical response movements that I did as a teacher with my parents, trying to communicate whatever I was trying to communicate. I'm looking for translators. Is there a family friend who lives at the, wherever they were living at, whether it was the neighborhood, the apartment complex, wherever, I was looking for someone that they knew, that they trusted, that I could, communicate through. When I was first newly assigned to Cunningham on the west side, absolutely loved it. The experience to learn so many new things about, this is how we teach children and families that I really cannot communicate firsthand with, was truly, truly eye-opening. But I learned a lot from them. I learned a lot from the families and their networks and how it is to help them. So you're right, two different communities. But I still think at the very end, kids are kids, children are children. They still need the same type of teacher support. It just looks a little different, right? Because we've got to meet them where they're at. But children and families really, truly just want what every other family wants for their children. It really, there's no difference there, I don't think.
That makes sense. Yeah, of course. I think, and I think this is also true across the vertical. Oftentimes, so my wife works at an elementary school not far from here, and sometimes she's like, "How do you work with teenagers all day at a high school?" I was like, I hate to break it to you, but they're still children. They might look bigger and they smell different. I'll grant you that, but they're
Mhm.
still kids, and they still need the same support and care that kids need. It needs to be appropriate, but I mean to their age group. But it's still care. It's still thoughtfulness. It still requires effort and energy and love. And so it's interesting, and of course our kids have grown into their teen years, and now she's like, oh wait, you're absolutely right, they're just big kids. Yep, that's true, they still don't pick up their
Absolutely.
clothes.
That's
So
it. That's it.
so so I'm curious, so you talk about the language barrier that you ran into at Cunningham. I suspect it was the same at Bonham as well.
Mhm.
In your years as a principal in those schools, which I think makes up the lion's share of your career in the district, perhaps, or at least your administrative career, were you ever satisfied with what you'd done to overcome those barriers, or do you think that's an area we as a district need to do more work in?
No, I think there's a lot of work to be done. I mean, I think that I'm on a national call every week with the Greater Council, and this is work that we need to do better at as a nation, not only as a district or Houston. I think this is something that we face as a nation, where we have pockets of immigrants coming in, and we need to service them. So my goal, is to do better every day. I need to do better than yesterday. So I do look for, if we do better, if recently read a book that say, if you just can do 1% better than you did the day before, over the course of the year, you've gotten a lot better, right? So just one thing, what can we improve on? So as it relates to the language barrier, I think we're all trying to do what's best for students. I believe all teachers and administrators are truly trying to do what's best. I do believe in allowing that opportunity for everyone. We make mistakes, but looking for resources to be able to communicate effectively. Yes, I ran into that barrier, like, where do I get help, right? So yes, we became friends with whatever vendors were approved to provide this type of service, so that we could get the communication out, or whatever it was that needed to be done. So I do believe that there's over 100 languages spoken in HISD. As a
Absolutely.
district, we translate in four different languages at the district level, right? My department is not in charge of translation, but we do support when there's a need out there, because we do have contacts in the community where, hey, we need a vendor to provide this type of language support, that we do go above and beyond to support where is needed when we know about it, right? Because
Sure.
if my team's out in the field and they know about it, we can assist. But sometimes the teachers and the principals and tier 2 leaders, they're trying to do the best they can with what they have. So should we Are we doing good or great? I think we're doing good, but there's always room for improvement. Every day there's room for improvement. So I'm never going to be where I'm there. This will never happen.
Sure.
What could we have done better even, or what could I have done better as a principal? What could I have done better as an assistant principal? What could I have done better as a teacher? It's always going to be there. I've never arrived. I don't think I will ever arrive. So,
Well, now the shoe's kind of on the other foot, right? Because you were a principal in need of resources to help overcome these barriers between you and parents that were from different cultures, that spoke different languages, had different expectations of education.
mhm,
Uh, and I empathize with that, obviously.
mhm,
But now you're at the district level as the executive director of the multilingual programs department.
mhm.
First of all, uh, what does the multilingual programs department do? What is it responsible for?
The program, we're supplemental in nature, meaning we are funded through Title III funds. So we supplement whatever the district's big plans are for English learners. So English learners should have equitable access to all resources that the district offers. So that's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. And we come in and provide above and beyond support. We supplement whatever that the district has out there. Really truly came in to refocus the department around instructional support. I'm an instructional leader. I want to do instruction. I want to talk about kids being successful and having opportunities to access, you know, an academic career outside of high school, whatever that may be for them. It's different for all kids. So I support and empathize whatever it is that they choose to do. And as it relates to the instructional side and supporting our kids to be academically successful, we target, our vision is to ensure kids we're meeting the cognitive, linguistic, and affective needs of our students, because those three items are where we push that work out. So those are things that kids have access to through, the planning pieces with teachers. We truly are out there supporting that work. Are we being linguistically responsible educators, administrators, teachers, whatever it is that we need to meet as it relates to their linguistic needs? Are we truly lowering that affective filter so kids feel safe and it's okay to be who I am, and I'm here to learn another language as well, on top of, I've got to learn all of these other things around me, but now we're speaking a different language. You're trying to teach me in a different language. And of course, ensuring that cognitive need is also met. We want our kids to have access to rigorous curriculum, just like every other student, but with linguistic accommodations and lowering that affective filter. That's what our department really supports, aside from the compliance side. So we do have a compliance team. There are things that we have to do, federal mandates, state mandates, that's a must. And we do have a team that focuses on that. But our big focus is, do kids have equitable access to a quality, rigorous education while we still meet their linguistic and affective and cognitive needs, because they learn differently, right? That's just the way it is.
So the multilingual programs department has a portion of it that's sort of public facing, or I say customer facing, in the sense that the customer is maybe teachers of English learners, and so they provide services to those teachers to make sure that their students, the English learners themselves, receive linguistically responsible and equitable education. But there's also a portion of your department that's state facing and takes care of sort of compliance issues. Is that right?
So yes, that piece does fall under the multilingual department. So that's absolutely right. We have a healthy amount of individuals who are supporting teachers, and we go wherever the need is, meaning area offices, supervisors tell us, hey, this is where we need support. And then they mobilize us in that direction. So we take our cue from wherever it is the support is needed. We do make sure to have presence where we have large populations of English learners or immigrants or refugees or migrant students. wherever our numbers are, because we do track that. And then we have a professional development team of people, and their job is to service sheltered instructional coaches. You've probably heard of the SI coaches on the district. That was new as of 2 years ago, and we're looking to build capacity around building their knowledge, and making, helping build awareness around what does it look like to support English learners. Because I think people are doing the best they can with what they know. So building their capacity, or making them aware of, this is how you do it. So we read a lot, but then how? What does that actually look like? That is what the team is charged with. Is we want to show them, whoever them is, the teacher, the administrator, not tell them. So we need to model or demonstrate. But it is the same method I used as a principal. We expect teachers to teach, but if we don't show them how, then they're waiting on us to coach them, demonstrate, show.
I really appreciate the point of there sort of being a difference between sort of theory and practice. We've had a number of authors on the show who espouse theory. That's important. I'm a huge consumer of it. I read it, I figure out how that applies to my life as an educator, and then my job is to actually use it as a lens to create something, which I would argue is a lot harder. But I appreciate that you see that sort of as a dichotomy, and that it's part of the work. I have a question about this sort of supplemental aspect, or the way you describe your department as supplemental. Is there any institutional frustration, for lack of a better term, that comes from being sort of supplemental? And the reason why I ask that is it seems almost as if there is a sort of a tier one or mainstream, for lack of a better term, curriculum and academic services and all the other stuff, right? And federal and state compliance is for the everyday kid. And then there's a multilingual adapter that's been added on the side, right? As a supplemental sub department. I imagine there's good things and bad things about that. Because it kind of allows you to do good things. I can imagine being, it kind of allows you to do a little bit of professional development, a little bit of curriculum development, a little bit of this federal state compliance. And it gives you this kind of broad view of all the sort of administrative touches on the lives of kids and teachers. But it also, I can imagine it also being frustrating because that word supplemental.
I think on both sides, on the pros and the cons, there's always something positive, whatever side you fall on, because if if you consider yourself the pro, the con is just the other side, and vice versa, right? Because it's just the way it is. But you're absolutely right? That tier one, right? Tier one actually is for all kids, including our special pops. It actually includes everybody. So it's not like it's the afterthought. It's part of the tier one. I think that's a misconception that we're not necessarily trying to target our special pops. In my case, our English learners, that is part of the tier one. Now, the frustration comes in explaining supplemental when the person on the receiving end wants or is asking for something that I really want to provide them, but due to the federal regulations and guidelines, it's just something we can't do here, but let me see what I can do over here for you. So it's really being creative and being an advocate for, so I'm a huge advocate, not only for our teachers, but I was a principal. I know what teachers need to be successful. I know they need a lot of support. They need an advocate for them. So like I was an advocate for my students and my families. As a principal, not only was I an advocate for them, I had to be an advocate for teachers. That's just part of the role. And sometimes it's just very difficult to explain something because they don't understand, the other person doesn't understand So, nor do they care. And I don't blame them. My job is to provide the customer service that they need. So if I can't personally, sometimes I don't even go with, let me explain this. Let me just find out where I can get you the support and let me do the running around behind the scenes for you. Because I can appreciate that as a principal where I just want this. I didn't go to training for the funding sources in terms of how you manage it at the district level, right? That's your job, is to keep the district safe. I just need this. So sometimes it's just a matter of saying, I need to go find the right person who can do this for them, because all they want is the problem to be solved, or whatever it is, a resource or whatever they need. So it's just, yeah, that's the frustration is funding sources come with all kinds of federal regulations, and there's no way around that. There really is no way around that. It is what it is. And I just, keep it simple. Just keep it simple. If someone calls me for support, I will do everything in my power to get them what they need without getting into all of the red tape, because it's neither here nor there. They need the support, period. So if I can, I do it. If I absolutely cannot, or, I ran into, we can't, then I'll go back and, and explain if I have to. So yes, there's a lot of frustration, but really, truly, there's so many resources out there. Sometimes we just don't know how to mobilize what we have. We don't understand, right?
5 years as a district administrator at Hattie Mae White. And never once in those 5 years did I find a roll of red tape anywhere in that building. And I think I'll leave it at that. So if everybody saw their role as connective tissue to some degree, in the way you described, look, I'm not the muscle that's responsible for moving the leg, but I know a guy, right? That kind of attitude could save a lot of people a lot of headaches and move the work a lot faster. And so I admire you for embracing that. That's different than being a principal of a school. So I know a lot of folks that watch our show are aspiring principals. I don't know why. This is not the place. I don't know why you watch our show, but I'm happy you do. But for those folks who are aspiring principals, what has been the biggest sort of cultural change or spiritual change, even for somebody was a principal, for a successful principal for as many years as you were, to now be over a department of adults who in many cases are experts in their field, but there's no kids around, right? There's no parents coming to your door, not usually, right? But certainly it's a different look and feel, right? How's that adjustment been for you? It's been 3 years now, so you've had time to sort of take it in. Do you think you're a different administrator now than when you started the job?
As a leader, very different. I've learned so many things being in this position. So I'll let you know that one of the things I learned is that I really, truly appreciate the work that the principals are doing and that the teachers are doing, seeing it from this side of the field, right? There's so much that has to be done at a campus. And I know from experience, I went from a campus of, as a teacher, I think we serviced when I was a teacher, it was, about 800 to 900 students. As an administrator, I started a campus of about 350 kids, and I ended my career at a campus with about 900 elementary students. The campus was IR at the time. They asked me to, we're going to move you here, but there's a lot of English learners, and we want you to pull it out of IR in 1 year. And the work that we did there at Bonham, same teaching staff. They did a phenomenal job. So I know what it looks like to be at a campus. That on this side, 3 years in, I've learned that there's no more difficult job than being at the actual campus. Where, like you said, there are parents coming in, there are students coming in, there are teachers on the campus. There's so many moving parts. Every morning is, solving problems from the minute we walk onto the campus, because someone might have gotten ill. We've got to cover classes to parents are coming in because something happened yesterday and I want to meet with an administrator. There's so many moving parts in the morning that I appreciate the work that is being done at the campuses, because it looks a lot different than what we do here at central office. And the respect that I have for that group of individuals doing that work, what I call boots on the ground on the front lines, yeah, it's different. Now, the work I do here, it's important work. It's a lot of thinking, and I took a class at Rice one time, and they say, leaders get paid to think. Do you have a vision? Do you know where you're going? Because your department's waiting, or your team's waiting, and they're trying to follow a leader. So there's a lot of thinking, I thought if I have to sit here one more time and read another email, but it's a lot of that. And I like it. I'm not saying I don't like it. I can do this job. Just very different work.
I'm curious, though, is managing the adults different? So like as an elementary school principal, you're managing teachers, and the concerns they often have, and I'm speaking from my own experience, which may resemble yours. The concerns that they often have are pressing, and they're concrete, and they need to be attended to quickly. Chances are they've tried to solve the problem themselves multiple times, and they really need you to get it done. And that's why you get paid more. So you do it. That's sort of that there's sort of a reality there that makes sense in its own way. And teachers judge principals on how well they do that. How well do you remove obstacles that I can't remove myself? I wonder if that truth articulates itself into your position now.
I really try to focus on leading the group, whether it's at a campus or here. So my go-to move is not to manage anybody. I really think of the word management as managing things, right? Like budgets and like events, and like, those need management. There's we got to make a decision, bam, 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 bam. It's a checklist and we move on. But people are different. I do believe we need to lead them. They have to be motivated. They if they don't believe in your vision, you got to know how to talk to people, right? You got to say, hey, this is where I think we can go, right? And I think people are moved by feelings, or like they feel like I can follow this person. When we were trying to move the campus out of IR, and we got it out of IR in all domains in 1 year. I had 5 people assigned to instruction, and their jobs were, you stay in classrooms coaching teachers, modeling, co-teaching, whatever you got to do to ensure that teacher has the skills necessary to give the students what they need. You need to stay in classrooms, because I was having to deal with all that, which is my primary job, instruction, plus everything else, right? That is different, because we could be there. I could be in the mix. I was living and breathing the campus every day, and I loved it. That motivates me to see progress over time. This looks different because I don't get to see my team every day. I don't walk out into a campus to go see, how is my team doing? Let me go observe them. Let me coach them on the spot, give them feedback. I have to rely on my managers to get out in the field. And then I visit, and when I visit and I do walks with my managers and my program specialists, then I have that opportunity. So that's different, very, very different. That when I am in front of my team, we have monthly meetings. We try to do a monthly.
Sure.
That there's an opportunity to motivate them with something, because I want to lead them. I want to believe in what we do, right? Believe in kids, believe in teachers, believe in administrators, believe that overall there's good in what we do. And yes, there's a lot of red tape, there's a lot of bureaucracy, there's a lot of that, but it exists everywhere. And so there's a difference in leadership, but it doesn't mean my style changes per se. It just means my accessibility to my team changes.
It seems to me, by extension, your ability to communicate is even more essential, perhaps. Maybe a better way to say it is your vision has to be that much more clear, because you're not able to live your vision with your folks every day, walking into their classrooms, walking out in the cafeteria, connecting with stakeholders and so on in the way that you did when you're a principal, it seems to me, therefore, your vision has to be that much more clear. Um, so, A, would you agree? And B, and more importantly, what's the vision, right? For multilingual programs these days.
So you're right, right? You have to have a vision, and that's, you have to have communicated it well, because you're not with your team constantly. And I'm going to go back to ensuring kids have equitable access to rigorous lessons while still targeting their linguistic, affective, and cognitive domains. Now, let's talk about students whose proficiency levels, and I'm talking about English proficiency levels, might be beginner intermediate. The goal is we want to help build teachers' capacity, build administrators' capacity around how do you plan focused, targeted, and systematic lessons for ELs with proficiency levels that are beginner and intermediate. We will sing that song until it gets old and people have it ingrained and they understand what focused, targeted, and systematic means.
It's like a golden oldie, though. I like to hear it every time.
Yeah.
What about assessment, though? We talk about curricular resources for ELs a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's honestly it's something I'm possessed with right now. Chris Wood, who's one of the other interviewers who does a show with me, who's a dean of instruction at Sharpstown, and I are working on curricular resources for newcomers. Because there is curriculum, but there aren't actual like meat and potatoes for the class, sort of turnkey resources for teachers. And what we found is that it's such a huge leap for teachers who teach students who come as adolescents to the United States. It's such a huge leap for them to go from what's in that curriculum to actually create or cannibalize or steal or purchase those resources that they need to actually bring to bear what's in the curricular documents. That oftentimes they're hamstrung. It's too much, and so Chris and I sort of took it upon ourselves to sort of make that. And the reason I mention that is because we talk about curriculum and resources all the time. However, and we at Sharpstone, we put energy into that as well. But I bring up assessment because oftentimes the assessment that's used to judge whether our ELs are learning English are set in such a fashion or written in such a fashion that the English language growth for our ELs doesn't even register on the assessment. So it seems to me that there's a lot of room for equity in assessment. We have to give our kids the star, even though they've just got here from Honduras or Rwanda or the Democratic Republic of Congo. And you know all the places because you were responsible for their little brothers and sisters at Bonham, right? And we get reports back and it indicates to us this student didn't grow, 1 year after the other. But my argument is that the growth is sort of what they register as growth is the tip of the iceberg, and the growth that our kids are doing is beneath the surface. Doesn't even make it to the part of the scale that shows growth. For example, that's just one example of sort of inequity in assessment. Is that maybe an avenue where we could grow as a district or multilingual could advocate for? I'm just curious, is that something that that specialists or folks on your team have kicked around?
Absolutely. So assessment is a conversation happening again, not only here at the national level. We've gone from holding districts, states accountable at the national level for ensuring English learners were educated by creating assessments for English learners, to the other extreme, and the pendulum swung way to the other side as they share in our conferences. And now we're like, okay, wait a minute. Now we're way on this side. Now that it's not even a realistic goal to be assessing our kids in this way. However, I see a need for assessments, there is a need for how do we monitor that kids are getting what they need and that they're growing. I think that when we talk about assessments in such a general way, we have to be careful. If we're assessing content, we're not assessing language. If we're assessing language, then we're assessing language, but not content. And I think that everybody looks at the state data. STAR, it's what's staring at us in the face these days. Or for you, I think you mentioned earlier AP assessments, things like that, right? If the kids actually have access to those assessments.
Mm-hmm.
So that's content, that's not language. And it doesn't mean that if you give me a content test in my language, I could ace it. It just means I don't speak the language to take the assessment in this language and ace it.
Sure.
But I was educated in my country, meaning I'm talking about kids that were educated in their countries. There are going to be a lot of kids not educated in their countries. And then there's a language, there's actually a gap in content for them on top of now you want me to learn it in my other language, my second language, as I come to the United States. So when a statement is made, and we look at data just like everybody else, we monitor the data here for my English learners, our refugees, any one of our populations. But we also know we advocate for, you have assessed them for content. This is not language. We can't say, well, they haven't mastered the language. No, but they've made progress. Like you said, there's progress. We're just not mastering a state assessment yet. I haven't mastered the language to the point that I could pass a state assessment. Now in TELPAS, which assesses for language proficiency, that's a different thing that we know. And according to John Seidlitz and his work, we know that if they master language, they're going to master the content. But we got to hit it here first. We got to build it at the same time.
You're trying to sell folks on. You often find yourself trying to sell folks on the long way to get the job done, though, don't you think? Maybe I'm voicing my own frustration.
Say it again.
You find yourself as somebody who advocates for this kind of authentic education, authentic curriculum that's sort of authentic to the needs of the child, and instruction that's authentic to the interests of the child, for example, the choice and voice of the child, that you're advocating for doing it the long way, right? The hard way, as opposed to what so fashionable in so many places, where especially where we're not talking about special pops, we're talking about what the state might construe as the average student, and I don't even know what that is anymore in Texas, but based on the way the STAR is written, I could tell you what they think it is. For us, in the face of this onslaught of standardized testing that we know our kids are going to struggle with because of language, right? To having the stability and presence of mind to say, yes, we know the tsunami is coming. However, it's very important that we focus on what's essential. And the hope is that essential thing is building the right house, making it just right so that when the tsunami comes, it doesn't get wiped away. That can be a difficult thing to sell folks on something theoretically that makes a lot of sense, but what about my scores? And so I'm proud to say that I am on the same side of that conversation. I hope that folks realize this. And I don't like to make plugs for Sharpstown, but I'll say this much as well. Sharpstown, along with Wisdom High School, are the two high schools that have the largest percentage of ELs in the district, comprehensive high schools. Actually, yeah, because Liberty's not considered a comprehensive high school, but we consider them a sister school as well. But right now, despite that, by focusing on developing language skills and doing the work with the pedagogy that we describe in the show, Sharpstown is ranked number 5 in the district among comprehensive schools, according to TEA, and that ranking is based largely on test scores. So we're not a drill and kill school. We're not a STAR prep to death school. we're an art school and a music school and a dance school and authentic language school, and even though we're betting on the long game, the results are coming. So I hope people believe it, is my point. And I'm happy to hear that's the same thing that I'm hearing from the multilingual programs department. I want to move to your symposium that's coming. And
Okay.
it's a big deal. And I want you to talk to us about what can folks expect to learn at the multilingual symposium that's coming up this summer.
So you've you mentioned the symposium, and we're really, really excited about the symposium. It's it's going to be a virtual symposium again for the second time. We did really, really well last year, and the 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 goal is that we are building again background knowledge, awareness around what it means to develop and build academic language for our English learners while teaching content. We don't want to isolate language on its own. And we hope to have what we call a blueprint to construct, develop, and build academic language in all content areas. And so the focus is that, meaning all of our presenters coming in will talk a little bit about what that looks like as it relates to whatever they're presenting on. So we have experts from the field, meaning Sidelooks Education team will be providing supports just like they have in the past, and other experts in the field that will come in to provide PD, as well as our own team members who will also be providing professional development, so that there is an array of choices around what the individual thinks that they may need to build their capacity as it relates to their current population. We'll have different tracks. Like, I'm an ESOL teacher. These are some recommended courses for you, just recommended. You may do something different, but we'll make recommendations for first-year teacher, veteran teachers, ESOL teachers, so that there are options for, or an array of voices of, this is what I would like to learn about during the 2-day symposium.
So if I'm a first year ESL teacher, I can go into the symposium expecting to find courses that are going to help me improve my practice. By providing the theory that I need to understand in order to make a classroom that makes sense for our kids. That's linguistically and culturally responsible as well. And B, will I get some of the sort of meat and potatoes as well from folks in the department too?
The goal is you're learning not only what you call theory, right, but the how. Did you demonstrate to me how to do it? Because the how, the demonstration, the showing is the part that is what I would consider meat and potatoes. I don't know if that's what you mean by the meat and potatoes, but
I meant meat. I'll start calling it the how.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Because that's what teachers want. They want to say, okay, you taught me, this is what the best practice is, but did you model it for me during the presentation? So during multilingual PD, when we interact with them, when there is an interaction, when there is something that we are demonstrating, it's because we have embedded it into the PD, so that when we modeled it, we say, so today we used XYZ. This is how you can use it in your classroom with whatever students you may have. And they should walk away with 1 or 2 strategies. We don't overwhelm them. You don't need a whole bunch, just need 1 or 2, because I only want you to, like, if you could just take one thing away from this, what would it be? Something that is practical and fairly easy to do. I may not even understand why it's that important yet, but when you practice it, that one item, that one strategy, you will start to see the fruits of your labor, and then they understand. That's what I used to tell first-year teachers. Listen, I know it doesn't make sense. Just do what I'm asking in terms of, like, follow the TE for practice, just get a rhythm to it. And I promise you, you're about to tell me why this curriculum, this research-based product doesn't work. Why? Because you're going to get a rhythm to it. You're going to know, you're going to see what works, what doesn't, and you're going to become my expert because you're my voice. So that's the way I share. or I expect my team to, is share it with them. And then when they implement, they're going to see the product, the fruits of their labor when the students begin to engage in whatever it is they're sharing.
Perfect. I think that's exactly what we need. And I also realized that maybe my phrase "meat and potatoes" is a little bit culturally irresponsible. I need to change it.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I
Uh,
just want to make sure I was really meeting your need in terms of what you were asking.
no, I'm happy that we were able to get to that real quick. Yeah, but I think when you describe the how, as opposed to the why, right?
Mhm.
They're getting the why and they're getting the how,
Exactly. Because
and they
when
already
you're
know when.
new, exactly. The teachers with their new, you can tell them till you're blue in the face the why, and it doesn't matter because they don't understand. They haven't practiced it. So I'm
Yeah,
not trying to convince you of the why. It's research. It is what it is. The research says this works. Let's show you how to do it.
it's
And
exciting.
eventually they discover the why on their own, but there has to be a discovery stage for the teacher. We cannot force it. We teach, you go practice theoretically. Hopefully they're on our rotation for coaching and feedback. Then we go back in and coach what we have taught our audience, right? So hopefully we are recruiting those schools that we're targeting. If they're on our roster to support, those teachers are coming in so we can turn around and give them feedback on the practice. It's just the goal is they discover the why for themselves so they can
Yeah,
understand the why.
absolutely.
Mhm.
I love that, and I say it all the time. I wish for every teacher that they stay in the profession long enough, and it's the job of principals to keep them in the profession for long enough that they
Mhm.
start to understand the why over the years.
Absolutely.
I was 21 years old, working as an associate teacher at an Aldine ISD, and there was an administrator named Miss Mancha who was there. Miss Mancha told me something once that rubbed me the wrong way. She said, "Education, honey, it's the South, so we can say that, honey. Education is an avocation, not a vocation." I was like, okay, and just it went in there, and it created some cognitive dissonance. I was like, well, I didn't sign up to be a priest, so I don't know why I need to be avocation. Okay, cool. I'm here to get paid, but that's cool. You know,
Yep.
and it didn't take much more than a year of doing the work um, before I just sort of sat down and my mind was blown by what she'd said.
Yeah.
And it's become the truth for me ever since. That's just one example of many times where your brain's not ready to receive it,
Yeah.
but the practice will make you ready over time. And so my hope for all of our teachers is that they get that experience. And I'm excited that the multilingual symposium will be a step in that direction for folks. When is that symposium this summer?
June 25th and 26th, a Friday and a
Perfect.
Saturday.
Any other things that we can expect from the multilingual department we need to be looking out for over the coming half year or going into the next year? Should we be paying
Well,
attention to?
I will tell you that we're really, really excited to have identified some funding for ESOL teachers. I really do believe that there's a lot of funding in high schools. There's a lot of funding in secondary, middle, high. There's a lot of things elementary gets because they're elementary, right? They're a
Yeah.
big group of folks for the district. But in general, we don't actually target populations of teachers servicing very, very unique population of students. And English, the ESOL courses are for students that qualify because their language needs are sitting at maybe a beginner intermediate level. It's not about, for the most part, you'll see immigrants, but it's not because they're immigrants. It's not because they're refugees. It's because there's a language need. Because if I'm an immigrant, but I speak English, I should not be in an ESOL class. I should be in that English 1 class or English 2 class. And that's a misconception that we're still trying to battle out there. ESOL teachers really service that population of students that really need a lot of language support. But those kids, those teachers are expected to teach our students to pass that test because they take English 1. That's what you were talking about. And the state there's an expectation they're going to take English 1 after ESOL 1. So we were excited to really, truly support them by providing them technology that you talked about it. Technology was a gap at the beginning of this year. In general, we were just trying to get it out everywhere. As a nation, we were. But we were
Sure.
excited that we were able to provide them, and they've been delivered clever touch boards, new document cameras, the swivel robots, and the iPad to go with the robot so they can utilize it. They're being delivered as we speak. I think the clever touch boards are out there. We're following up
Yes.
with the document cameras. We're going to come out and train, and we're part of the district's initiative for the swivels. So that's really a district initiative, but we are supporting ESOL teachers to get that. So yes, there's a district initiative, but I'm targeting specifically ESOL teachers where it is imperative that if the teacher has to walk away from the camera, the student can still see the teacher's movements, what as they're speaking. It matters for an English learner that says, you are just, all I hear is walk, walk, walk when you walk away, because I'm trying to focus on what are you pointing at? What are you saying? What are your gestures? That is so important that we will be embedding in our professional development the use of those tools. So we will model how to use these tools while we're providing UPD around best practices.
Oh, you better get good at it then.
I'm sorry?
So you better get good at those swivel touch things then.
Oh yeah, we've been practicing behind the scenes. We've had so that is new in terms of the PD team will now embed this into their professional development. The products are being sent out to ESOL teachers. So specifically for ESOL teachers, there's a lot of support in terms of technology. If they already have it, it's added support for the
Sure.
actual teachers.
No, we're
And then, of
excited. We got our
course-
clever touch boards here already, and we're excited about it. Yeah.
Got it already.
Yeah,
Good. So
yeah.
that's exciting for me because I think they're like the forgotten group of teachers. What's the incentive to keep them there? We need the best teachers in ESOL, and sometimes it's hard. Like, where do we incentivize the teachers for doing the work that's not always easy, but imperative, especially at a school like Sharpstown, where a lot of your population, right? What do we do as a district? You said it's the principal's job to retain teachers. It's my job to support the principal to retain teachers for my English learners and ESOL classes.
Yep.
This is one way that, I can support the principal to retain his teachers in supporting a group of students that really, really does need that effective teacher in that particular classroom. So that's new. And of course, really truly getting out there to grow that dual language program. Like we got to do better about supporting the dual language program out there, and the expectations around the state has moved towards incentivizing LEAs or districts with more funding for dual language programs. It is the premier bilingual program that a district could offer students. And where there is a dual language program, because we are a district of choice, right? You don't have to, as a principal, provide a dual language program, but where there is one, where the district and the community have chosen to provide this program, then what are we going to do to support the campuses? So we're rebranding, we're taking that dual language program and making changes based on feedback from our community and our administrators and teachers that are serving on the Multilingual Learners Committee. And I just want you to know that we will have a whole new team for them. So that was brand new coming next year. Brand new, where we're going to be building it from the ground up, that we need to do something differently. And every year, I charge my team, my managers, my program specialists, me, what are we going to do differently next year? We did this, but every year, what are we going to be? What is it that's we're going to do to support campuses in a different way, or support the district or the students or the families in everything we do? Because we target not only students, but we also have a family and community engagement group that targets that for our English learners. It's mandated by the federal at the federal level through the ESSA grant fund. So we have all these things. What are we going to do differently in everything we do? We just have to be 1% better than we were the day before every day.
Yeah.
every
In,
day.
in 100 days, you're a different person, right?
Yeah,
Um,
hopefully.
so, um, thank you so much for buttressing principals so that they can buttress teachers, and so that they can support kids, and for the essential work that you do. Excited to hear about dual language programs getting more support. My daughter, who is 6, is in a dual language program. She's learning
Oh, good.
Spanish. Yeah. And for the viewers, I am not a native Spanish speaker. My parents are
You don't have
Pakistani.
to be.
I find myself saying that a lot in my life, being this shade in Houston, Texas. But my daughter also resembles me, and so I said, why not just take that pain away from her? As she grows up, people will walk up to her and not have to ask. If she speaks Spanish, she can just get right into it, and they can think
She can
whatever
just
they want.
respond. That's
They can think
right.
whatever they want after they leave. Wow, that Latina was really fluent. Well, does it? Um, I'm excited about that. I'm curious about how that's going to translate to secondary. I think that's been certainly is the big conundrum for our district, I imagine, and elsewhere, is getting a dual language or language immersion program off the ground and resourced in elementary school is hard enough. But when it hits the master schedule of a secondary school, it tends to splinter. And so my hope and prayer is that our district starts to sort that out, especially as a lot of our dual language and language immersion kids come of age to move into to matriculate to middle school and even high school. um, uh, a solution to that would be
And that will be one of our focus, is to
huge,
really
huge
delve
stuff.
into how do we build this at the secondary level while still meeting the needs of the campus administrators who are juggling that master schedule, where they say, but our track is IB, and we have this language program, or we have this fine arts program, or they have to have a minimum number, and that is a beast. That's a beast. So
I
definitely
mean,
navigating
yeah,
that process.
the answer to everything is ultimately money. I can tell you that much. At Sharpstown, we were asked to take on a magnet program, and we said we'd love to. Problem is that our school is built for 1,400 kids, and we've got about 1,800 enrolled. So if you can build another building, we'll take on a magnet program, because we can't displace the kids that are here. We love them. We don't want them to go anywhere. So
Yeah.
the school's full. And so anytime we add this complicating factor to a master schedule, that's the reality that sort of hits us in the face. And so the honest answer to the question is not a question. It's really not a question of desire or know-how. Maybe that's the case, but that's a disparate thing from school to school. Certainly at Sharpstown, with language acquisition being at front and center of what we do here, that's
Yes.
not the issue. The issue literally is funding
Funding.
for construction and more classrooms and more and more and more. And so my hope is that people get it and
Me too.
yeah,
Me
bring it
too.
to
We're
bear.
working on that. We're working on that to be that voice where um, we we need to give students access to continue to develop their biliteracy skills through the dual language program, and essentially graduate with a biliteracy seal. Because we've now offered it, we need to allow them the opportunity to finish that out.
Yeah.
So we're working on that. Farhan, we have a new manager that started last Monday, and with experience in dual language for the dual language senior manager role. So we are really truly giving it a facelift, and listening to the principles, and how it started in the past, and then where are we today? What do we need to do differently? How do we support you now today? So we're working on that. So that's new work coming in for the new year.
Wonderful. Well, we'll be paying close attention to it. Anna White, thank you so much for joining us today. Uh, we wish you continued success in your work. Your support is essential to us, and we will continue to ask you for help.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate all the work you all do at Sharpstown. We can't do this job without every single one of you out there in the field. So thank you
Thank you so much.
to you, the administrative team, your principal, everybody out there doing the work.